All right. So today we're gonna do um, a couple of side dungeons, some side content. We're basically going to start exploring uh, what it is that's brought about this issue with those who live in death. Um, so yeah, we got, like I said, we got a couple side dungeons. This one I always have issues finding. So give me just a moment to. I don't think this was it. Maybe it's down here. Yeah, there it is. This is also our first Elden Ring FromSoft Poison Swamp. So let's go ahead and see what we see. One thing worth noting is if you roll while in the swamp, you'll get swamp juice all over you, and then you get poisoned more quickly. But you can wash that off with a craftable item called soap. So there's this whole deal with it. We will eventually get poisoned, it's just a question of how long it takes. Just, you know, in here there really isn't any avoiding it. There it is. Trying to remember where we came in. Where we need to go next. And here we have more of those, they're called Miranda blooms. Oh, and that's where the boss is. We're going the wrong way. I don't know that there is a ton of super important stuff in this dungeon other than the boss. If you're a newish player, perhaps skip this one. Unless you really enjoy sort of trudging around in the swamp. But I do believe this is going to be one of those arterial leaves that sort of, yeah, implies that the plants and the plants are alive, that they have their own sort of, well, not just alive, but like sentient. They have their own pulse, they have their own they're more human-like than we might would assume. All right. So, yeah, A lot of fun, this dungeon. But let's go ahead. For the record, as you might expect, the plant's weakness is fire. So if you have a torch and you can set it on fire, that'll help. And then the reward is the Viridian Amber Medallion. Let's go ahead and take a look. Erdtree's old sap becomes amber, treasured as the most precious of jewels in the age of Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. A primordial life energy resides within. So, sort of the implication, especially with the use of that word primordial, is that the Erdtree's life energy comes from that primordial crucible that's been mentioned a few times. And here we see a bunch of knights. These knights always accompany this giant walking mausoleum, trying to protect it. And one thing that you'll notice is that the knights all have no head. They are headless.
It's been an age since I've seen a customer. How can I help here at the end of the earth? Have a safe journey.
Okay, so that is, the merchants all sell these little hints. I haven't been picking them up, but I recommend picking up all of them unless if you're trying to play through blind, in which case, why are you watching this, but still. Because some of them are super important. A little note, these feathers at the bottom are different for each merchant. So it turns out that in sort of beta builds or earlier iterations, there was this whole thing about, there was this whole cut subplot about the merchants. Enough still survives that we're going to get into it, but they cut a bunch, and part of it was that you could identify different merchants based on the feathers that were tied to their notes, and also that they used birds to carry messages to one another. Anyway, here's the note. To stop the mausoleum stride, you'll need to clean up around its feet first. Just a little hint for how we're going to stop this giant wandering mausoleum. Now let's go ahead and clean up around its feet. It's important not to get stepped on here. Which makes it different than dealing with Ronnie. And notice that these barnacles that I'm cleaning off its feet are little skulls. They've got skulls on them. And that they burn with, that when they come off, they burn with what appears to be death flame. Also, watch this. As soon as the mausoleum goes down, all of the headless knights died. Okay. Also note that this mausoleum has that same sort of Baroque architecture that we associate with like the Magic Tower and that type of thing. It is not the same as the architecture of Limgrave. And inside we have a headless man with his arms outstretched. I'm going to go ahead and tell you the purpose of these walking mausoleums in gameplay terms is that once we kill a great enemy, like one that actually has a remembrance that can be turned into items or a bunch of runes or whatever, once we kill one of them, we can use them to get weapons and armor and stuff. If you want to get more than one item from that, you have to duplicate the remembrance. So we'll get an item that we can use to turn in for like a weapon, but like most of them have 2 weapons that are associated. If we wanted to get both, we'd have to duplicate it. So you would give it to that headless man in there, and he would duplicate the remembrance for you, which the remembrance is sort of like the soul of the enemy that you defeated. That's interesting lore-wise. So the knights that sort of guard those walking mausoleums are called Eclipse Knights, and there are a bunch of cultures that have this idea that during the eclipse you are invisible to the gods. And so there's this whole concept of what they would do is they would take a peasant and they would, you know, treat him extremely well for a moment, for a day, and then they would sacrifice him, claiming that he was the king. And the gods would accept. That's interesting. And so that's led some of the community to speculate that maybe those dudes are just like some dudes. And that they're a vessel for, like, some ritual has been done, and they're a vessel for the soul of one of the gods. Because they've been sort of sacrificed instead of to bring back the soul of a god. And yeah, maybe. I hope we get more on the Eclipse Knights and some of this. I don't think we will. Like I said, when I first started planning this run, I was so sure that that was what the DLC was going to be about, I didn't even question it. I'm thrilled to have been proven wrong. It doesn't seem like that's what the DLC is going to be about. It seems like the team sort of considers that story complete. Good lord. And that they're interested in trying to tell a different story now. Okay, so here we have the Nomadic Warriors Cookbook 9. Not a super interesting item, but let's look at it anyway. This is used to craft the Rancor pot. And if you look at item crafting, the Rancor pot says, enchanted by an ancient death hex, spawns vengeful spirits that chase down foes. In times of old, the dead were burned with ghost flame, and from those cinders arose vengeful spirits. So sort of the idea here is that, the Erd Tree Burial, took the place of an older, ritual. And yeah, that older ritual apparently still exists in some parts of the Lands Between. But, more importantly, there seems to be something messed up with the way that the current system is working. For some reason, souls aren't returning to the Erd Tree because we have these essentially undead monsters who are able to return and who burn with that like ghost flame when they come back. And these undead are extreme enemies of the current world order. Like we've gone like the Golden Order, which is the current order of the world, has gone through extreme pains to try to eradicate them, and obviously failed because they're still around. But the question is sort of, what about these dudes ticks them off so bad? And on some level, the answer to that seems obvious, right? It's because they're weird, creepy skeleton men. Whoops. I skipped a room, but I don't think there's anything important in here except for upgrade materials for the spirit summons we're trying not to use. Nicely done. Shoot! Okay, that was a bit of a mess. But let's just go again. I don't see any reason to do a rematch, even though, frankly, that is a fight I should have been able to take. I just let myself get. I just let myself get in trouble with it. So here we see our first sign that something is amiss with the roots of the Earth Tree. You can see these roots coming down, but they've got eyes in them. There's something creepy and gross about them. They aren't right. And we're gonna see that thing of the weird kind of cursed roots everywhere we go that deals with those who live in death. You would think eventually I would stop and put the other stuff into my flask, like at least like a stamina booster or something. But yeah, there you can see, like, it's all over this dungeon, actually, once you start noticing it. Just like these roots that are incorrect. They're not... They look almost like corpse skin or something, and then they've got these eyes sort of popping out of them. Just, they're wrong. They're not... They're not something that should exist. This boss in particular is a little weird. He shoots this thing that paralyzes you. For one thing, he's hard to hit, because he won't stay still. But also, if you get a good look at him, which is difficult, he's got a weird crab dude on the top of his head. Like some sort of like insect or something. And his weapons look almost like crab claws. I think creator Ziostorm did something on this lately. Where the idea was that this was just like a... Jeez! You must be kidding. Well, at least I got the heal off in time. Are you kidding? Come back! Good lord. But he shoots a toxin. He looks like a bug a little bit, and he's got this weird thing that comes out of him. He's got these weird weapons that look almost like crab claws or pincers or something. So the theory was that he the corpse is just a corpse, and he is some sort of parasite or something controlling it. But we only see this monster a couple times, so it's hard to say for sure what the heck's going on there. Anyway, we did get a spirit summon, and this is Ludel the Headless, spirit of a headless knight who leads the mausoleum soldiers, wields a lance enrobed in death, and hurls spectral lances at foes. Ludel sacrificed her life so that in death she could continue to protect the soulless demigod until their revival, earning her the hero's honor of Erdtree burial. So, what's interesting there is that the Mausoleum Knights are apparently working for the Golden Order because they're worthy of Erdtree burial, or at least for someone who worships the Erdtree. Those factions get a little confusing as time goes on, but the idea seems to be basically that. But basically, she was working in service of the Erdtree. Otherwise, she would not have earned an Erdtree burial. And she was working to protect these one of these mausoleums, or the being inside. So, yeah. Let's do. We've got some time. We've got a lot of time left. So, first, I'm going to. So I'm going to try to fight some of these nighttime only bosses. These can be a bit tricky. So first we've got another one of these Knights Cavalry. This one shouldn't be hard, but I still manage to mess it up more often than I want to admit. The main thing is he jumps so much, so it's hard to actually land a hit. Again, advanced apologies to anyone who gets seasick watching me do this. I don't want to be in all those trees and everything. It gets harder to Whoop. Nice shot. It can get harder to navigate if you let it. If you get like in a place with a lot of obstacles and stuff. That'll do it. Okay, let's look at the weapon we just got. Knight Rider Flail. A flail with 2 additional bludgeoning heads. Weapon of the Knights Cavalry who ride funeral steeds. The large spikes make it highly effective at inducing blood loss, but also demand higher dexterity to wield. Oh, while we're here, let's also... put at least something in here. We do have another merchant here. Uh, he sells a well, we should probably pick that up since we've got the runes for it.
Vamos.
Crimson Amber Medallion. We already got the Viridian Medallion version. Uh, Same explanation and everything. You can start the game with this. It can be your starting item. I don't really recommend it. It's not. It's based on your. It's a percentage of your HP gets added. So if your HP is low, then it doesn't do much, and if your HP is high, you don't need it, right? But it can give you a little bit. So remember that weapon we picked up that talked about the beautiful maiden. Who, the gentle envoy of death, who carried people who had passed to their final resting place. Here she is. This is that that beautiful creature. Oh man, and we can't get the crit. That's fine. Again, if you can hit the head, it does a lot more posture damage. Plus, it looks cooler. But, you know, take what you can get. And that status effect, hopefully we will actually see that status effect at some point, just sort of organically. I don't want to purposefully die and get it now, but... Oh, that's it. Are y'all kidding right now? Thank goodness for friendly fire. Okay. Ooh, crit. Sad crit that didn't do half what I thought it would do. Should have just done a couple heavy attacks instead, but still, crits are always fun. I always take them. I know a lot of people would say, hey, before you get your crit in, make sure you do some other attacks or whatever. And yeah, if you're playing multiplayer or you're trying to optimize, that's probably correct, but I like crits. I want to make sure I get them. They look good. Got a little greedy there towards the end, but that's okay. All's well that ends well. Okay, and our item is the sacrificial axe. Let's take a look at it. Hatchet used in an ancient sacrificial rite. A Deathbird is depicted as a malevolent deity. The power of the rite yet lingers. A small amount of FP is restored upon slaying a foe. And you can see it's got the wings that are very similar to the winged scythe. Yeah, and then the Deathbird's beak is sort of holding the blade. So yeah, those are the Deathbirds. They're kind of horrifying. We will see a few of them this playthrough. Okay, I've got 20 minutes, and I don't know that I necessarily want to start Castle Morn, so I'm trying to think what other stuff might be in the Peninsula that I might be interested in looking at. Fortunately, we've got the map. Yeah. Let's go kill that guy, and then we will look around for a little while. Because I'm sick of him shooting at me. Hey, that one got me. Okay. so the first thing we want to do is, since we've got some time to just look around. Let's see, what do we got? Anything we haven't done? So there is a ruin here that we skipped. We will come back to it much later in this playthrough. It's one of the more interesting and also one of the harder to crack quest lines. You can hear, if you listen, the pitter-patter of my daughter's feet. You can also hear these dudes that are being crucified yelling. Then up here we have a spell that's just sort of hanging out. Incantation of the Servants of Rot. Okay, so it's not a spell, it's an incantation. Those who dwell within poison know rot all too well, the death that begets life that comes to all equally. That is to say, it is the cycle of rebirth put into practice. So there is a religion that in this world that worships rot. And they will become more important in some future episodes. But they tend to dwell in poison or in rot. And the idea is that it's difficult for life to come into being without death and rotting first. So there's this whole concept of rot having to exist, but being sort of excluded from this order where nothing ever dies. These jellyfish, you can see because they're red, they start out hostile. I'm not sure why in this one place they would be hostile. I'm sure there's a reason, but it isn't really given. We've got a smithing stone. We've got one of those arterial leaves. We've got these dudes staring out into the ocean. This might be the folks who were left behind, now that I think about it. Would be an excellent explanation of who these dudes are. Because we are now at the very southern tip of the world. And we can see on a clear day, which today isn't, you can see in this area shipwrecks and such out there in the ocean. So there was in a recent dungeon, one of the enemies dropped an anchor that was said to be the anchor of the one boat of Tarnished who were left behind. Well, those jellyfish might have been from that single boat. Because the chairs were arranged out to like look out at the ocean and stuff. And here we have a sword monument. Quick reminder, these tend to be monuments to places where battles took place. The Siege of Castle Morn, a lone hero fights for his vengeance only to fall at the hand of Lord Godfrey. Morn is generally associated with revenge. The castle is associated with revenge. The quest that we do there is associated with revenge, and we've got this mention of like the lone hero, um, trying to hold off Godfrey. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an explanation for who that hero was right off, except it seems like he was probably one of the Banished Knights. But yeah, at some point, someone tried to stand against Godfrey here in this here castle. It's now under the control of the Golden Lineage. Godric is the Banner Lord who controls this castle now. Or was up until recently when the misbegotten servants rebelled and took it over for themselves. So we will pick that story up next episode, because frankly, I don't have anything else to do in the this area that wouldn't seem a little out of place. So we're gonna just call it here. All right, I will see y'all next episode.